so helpful. And, you know, as a young journalist, he was just it's so easy to talk to. As you say, he's one of the greats.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first. GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense.
Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at. Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good morning. It's 9:30 a.m. on Friday, the 26th of September, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Alex Armstrong, and Miriam Cates.
Well, the backlash is growing as the government has announced that every adult in the UK is to get mandatory digital ID cards.
That's the breaking news this morning, as in a desperate bid to stop the boat, Sir Keir Starmer hopes these IDs will prevent people working illegally. Is this unacceptable state control, and will it even work?
Well, the Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, Helen Whately, is not convinced.
Don't want to have a society where people can be stopped in the street and asked to show their ID. Completely opposed to that.
Reform UK leader Nigel Farage also slammed the move.
I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do.
But the Shadow Culture Secretary, no, the actual Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, defended the policy.
We think there's a really positive element of this to a lot of people across the United Kingdom, but it also will help us to deal with something that's of significant concern to a lot of people, including many of your viewers, and that's illegal migration.
Well, the Prime Minister will today admit that the Labour Party got it wrong on migration as he prepares to make the case for national renewal based on British values and difference under the same flag. Well, we'll be hearing from Sir Keir Starmer from the world stage shortly.
And Nigel Farage is on course to be Prime Minister, leaving the Tories on the brink of extinction. Well, that's according to a new bombshell poll from YouGov.
And RAFM win the battle for, get this, vegan uniforms. Yes, the spam busters must be provided with eco-friendly boots, belts and berets on request. Putin's going to be shaking in his boots, isn't he?
Yesterday, Alex, on the show, we were covering a story, a report about the UK Armed Forces, saying that it was too male and that they needed diversity quotas. Well, I don't think it doesn't sound particularly male if they're going after vegan uniforms, not particularly masculine.
It's bonkers, isn't it? I mean, of all the things we've got to be worrying about with World War III on the brink, we're worried about whether they should have vegan uniforms. Honestly, Mary, you just can't make it up.
And to come out of this report, there was a very serious point, which is lots of people in the army of all ranks are asking, what's the point of the army? There isn't a war to fight. They don't want to do lots of kind of civic duties, and all they spend their time getting vegan uniforms.
I know. Well, they might be rolled out on the streets if digital ID gets out of control, because I tell you what, the backlash has been severe. 600,000 people have now signed a petition. It's going up by about 1,000 a minute.
I mean, it's extraordinary. I mean, I don't know if they'll get it through Parliament. You've got to hope that the House of Lords would actually do their job on this. But nevertheless, it's popular in polling, and that's what's so worrying, because if people do think it will solve illegal immigration, then perhaps the government will convince them.
Lockdowns were popular too, but in hindsight, was it really that good? Anyway, let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get your 60-second news update with Sophia Hill.
Alex, thank you. Very good morning. Your top story is just after 9:30. The Prime Minister has unveiled plans for a free digital ID in a bid to crack down on illegal working and make it easier for people to access public services. Sir Keir says it's an enormous opportunity, but it faces growing backlash as Reform UK call it a cynical ploy to fool voters, and the Tories brand it a desperate gimmick to stop the votes. Nigel Farage is on course to be the next Prime Minister, according to a new YouGov poll. According to the MRP polling prediction, if there was an election held tomorrow, there would be a hung Parliament, with Reform UK winning 311 of the 650 seats, just 15 short of the winning line, but leaving no other option apart from Mr Farage. Meanwhile, a defiant Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to lead from the front into the next general election, despite speculation over his future. He's dismissed calls for change as Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham urges national drives. A multi-billion-pound boost is coming to Britain's high streets, parks and public spaces. The government's announced up to £5 billion for its new Pride in Place programme, backing 339 neighbourhoods to lead local renewal. And a rare Asian elephant calf has been born at Blackpool Zoo after a 2-year pregnancy. The baby elephant Zaya arrived at 10:30 in the evening on the 2nd of September, after the zoo staff say they've spent years preparing for this moment. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Alex Armstrong and Miriam Cates.
Well, to our top story this morning, and the government is set to announce the launch of free, I mean, it's never free, is it? Free digital ID cards for all adults.
Yes, Sir Keir Starmer has said that the Brit card will help to curb illegal immigration by preventing migrants from slipping into the shadow economy.
But the plans have faced backlash as well. Over 500,000 people, I think it's 600,000 now, there you go, have signed a petition demanding Number 10 reverse the policy.
Well, the Conservatives have branded the move a desperate gimmick, and earlier GB News spoke to the shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, Helen Whately.
We don't want to have a society where people can be stopped in the street and asked to show their ID. Completely opposed to that. And the fact is, this was an announcement rushed out at the last minute, and it's a last-minute thing from Keir Starmer to try and distract from all the problems. It's just a smokescreen for the failures of him and his government.
Well, the Liberal Democrats said they can't support the move either, as they tweeted, people shouldn't be criminalised just because they don't want to hand over their private data.
Well, the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage also raised concerns over state interference.
I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do, what we spend and where we go. And we, in Reform, are wholly opposed to it in every single way.
Well, someone's got to do it, and Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy defended the policy.
So we think there's a really positive element of this to a lot of people across the United Kingdom, but it also will help us to deal with something that's of significant concern to a lot of people, including many of your viewers, and that's illegal migration.
But will digital IDs stop illegal immigration? Well, let's bring in GB News' Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Now, Mark, if digital IDs could eliminate all the problems we're seeing with illegal immigration, then I think people would be perhaps in favour of it. But do you think it will be that effective?
Well, people that want to enter the country to work illegally take on the risk in doing that, knowing that if they're subject to checks, then they could be found out and then removed from the country. They do that anyway in very significant numbers. What is the risk of having or not having a digital ID that's any different to not actually having the right to work here anyway? When an immigration enforcement worker, employee decides to raid a premises and then check you, they can do that anyway. I've been on many immigration raids where within minutes they are able to check through various databases whether an individual that they are speaking to, a foreign national, has legitimate rights to be in the country, legitimate rights to work in the country. So I'm not sure what a digital ID brings to the party that, you know, the other existing checks don't.
Tony Blair has been really the face of this. Let's just be honest, because he has been. He's been pushing this for a very, very long time, since he was in government. And here's the little video he put out. He said it'll make government more efficient and cheaper and more accessible. That seems to be the real thing here. This is what it's all about, isn't it? It's about moving all of your stuff into one place so the government can get hold of things they need very quickly, but it also comes at severe risk, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and I think there is certain concerns there that may well be legitimate. The government clearly now believes that the population is in a different place than they were in the early 2000s when Tony Blair initially tried to introduce ID cards. Now, that may be true, but there are many people in the country who are very concerned about what they see as creeping government control here. There's a lot of trust, I think, that has been lost since the early 2000s in the state apparatus. And we saw it, of course, during COVID with what many people believed was an overzealous interpretation of some of the restrictions. And yes, Tony Blair, he says, well, we can look at these IDs as potentially a gateway to other government services. You heard Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, saying, yes, that could be true, but we're not going to force people to do it. Well, we're not going to force people to do it until we are. Yeah. What's to stop either this government or another government further down the road from saying, well, we've got the ID card system in place, let's just make it compulsory to make sure that if you want access to this service, you have to then do it through this particular ID card system. Well, so that's, I think, what, you know, many people are perhaps legitimately concerned about is a creeping control from central government.
Indeed. Well, let's bring in Alan Miller, who's the co-founder of the Together Declaration, joins us in the studio. Alan, good morning. I know you are very, very concerned about this, but let's just start with the potential security risks. Lots of this information is already held about us by the government, different government departments, but what's a particular danger of bringing it all into one place?
The problem and the issue with a central state-controlled digital ID system is manifold. On the one hand, we've seen millions of breaches. Even the best tech companies can't prevent them. We've seen them hundreds of millions of breaches already. We've seen Marks and Spencers. We've seen Heathrow grounded. We've seen 19,000 Afghanis, personnel, MI6 people. We've seen across the world, IVF treatment, Finland, everywhere we're seeing breaches. That's one thing about privacy. Aadhaar, billions in India, data being sold. But at the same time, I mean, we've also seen things, haven't we, like concerns around censorship, posting on media, two-tier approach to different types of posts. We've seen the Online Safety Act and questions around that. We've also seen debanking for people with certain views. We've seen that councils like to fine people if they don't recycle in the right bags, or fine cars going in places where we haven't democratically discussed where they go, but they survey and fine us. One system, digital ID, with your biometrics, where you have to declare everything, all of a sudden we're a papers, please, digitally society. And my mum can't do that anyway, right? She has to go down to the bank. There are millions of people who can't, but there are also millions of people who won't. There are people who are very concerned in the last 5 years, the draconian measures that have been imposed on people. We were told COVID passes, vaccine passports, Somehow it would solve issues. Did none of the kind. Did lose 15,000 hospitality venues, though. We did see that happen. And the Tony Blair Institute and Keir Starmer now are very keen on doing this. Keir Starmer's got lots of issues. Andy Burnham potentially a rival, money questions, Labour together, the people who've put the plan forward, McSweeney, got questions about money. We're resolute. We have a protest on Sunday outside Labour Party conference together with farmers who've been doing things across Britain for a month, Scotland, England and Wales. We've got the public coming out. We've got protests around Britain. We're calling on the government to step back from this. We're lobbying MPs and we'd like all your viewers to get involved. Togetherdeclaration.org. No to digital ID.
Alan, why is it, do you think, that the poll after poll shows public support for these measures? And this is what worries me. Is we saw poll after poll supporting vaccine passports as well, and look how that turned out for the public. We had some broadcasters calling for people to be held down and forcibly jabbed, if you remember correctly. It was mental, Alan. So why do the public support these things?
I don't think the public do support these things. If you ask the public, do you think it would be nice to have net zero, in principle, be nice to the planet? They'll say yes. If you say, do you not need to go on holiday as much? Should the lights go off? It depends how you ask the question, and actually you should consume far less meat. Then they'll say, no, we don't want to do that. It's exactly the same question. If you have an honest discussion about what digital ID, the costs versus the benefits, hundreds of thousands illegal migrants in France, Italy, Germany, they have national identity schemes, has not prevented it at all. It's a nonsense. It's more than a nudge. It's an attempt to impose it. But the thing is, the public do not support it. We need to thrash that out more with them, but it's not going to be done immediately unless they do some mad emergency powers thing. It's going to have to go through Parliament. We're going to challenge it the whole way. We'd encourage all your viewers to get involved. Say no together, no to digital ID.
Well, I think it's easy to speculate what the polls actually mean. I mean, the public absolutely did support lockdowns. I mean, I think that's unequivocal. And they still support them in retrospect. And at the time, they wanted them to go harder and faster. And the problem is, most people prefer security to freedom. I'm afraid that is just a natural human condition. So what arguments are you and others going to have to make to convince people that actually digital ID would be a threat to their security rather than a protector of it?
It's a really great question. I don't actually think people do all look back and support lockdowns.
Not all, but the majority.
But I think if the government goes on TV every night and tells them how scared that they should be about this thing, then there's a big campaign and a PR. Now, many people could say that was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. But obviously the discussion about the climate environment, we have a similar thing about fear and Armageddon and doom. And if you keep presenting if one keeps presenting the arguments like that, it's very tricky. Our point at Together is always to get out to the public. We've got local, regional and national campaigning groups. We get flyers on the streets in shops. We have hundreds of thousands of signatories. We'd like more from your viewers to actually talk with our neighbours, friends, colleagues, to make the point about free speech, about movement, about privacy. If we think that it's fine that millions of breaches are happening on a daily basis, 125 million Americans just in 2025 have had data breaches. We've seen a whole array of things like that. We've seen that with in Portugal and Spain, with the electricity going down, net zero issue, us not being able to access things. We live in a world where there are technocrats who like to say you can do this and you can't do that. We want to cancel people at universities. We want to say you get the police come into your house if you do a post that some people think's hurty. The idea that the state, apparatchiks, bureaucrats can just basically switch you on and off at any point. Your banking, your free speech, your actual sovereignty, your personal sovereignty is an enormous problem. Yeah. And I think the British public are with us on this.
I certainly agree with you. Let's see how many more people do, but let's see what those petitions say. Alan Miller, co-founder of the Together Declaration, thank you as ever for coming in. Mark, do you want to briefly tell us what you've just seen?
Well, yes, the government message is getting out there, clicking into Operation Downing Street. Just sent out a little tweet at the moment where they're saying secure borders and controlled migration are reasonable demands, and this government is delivering. Digital ID will make it tougher to work illegally in the UK, except the burden will be, of course, on UK nationals to prove that they're legitimate.
Yeah, OK.
Thank you, Mark. Well, we're just hearing that a member of the rap trio Kneecap is set to find out whether a terrorism charge will be thrown out today at Woolwich Crown Court. He's just arrived there at court. We're seeing footage of him arriving at Woolwich Crown Court, so we'll be bringing you up to date as that progresses.
Yeah, wearing those famous balaclavas on the way in, it seems. Not potentially a look that I'd want to sport heading into court, but there we go, each to their own. All right. Well, up next.
Nigel Farage is on course to be Prime Minister. We'll be breaking that bombshell poll next.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It's our notes, isn't it? So why shouldn't the public have to say on who's on notes? And we've had Shakespeare, of course, and we've had Winston Churchill, but let's have something a bit more up to date.
David Attenborough.
A brilliant idea.
Thank you.
Brilliant idea.
No, I've just come up with that, and I thought that was quite good. And then they also encourage ideas, nature, don't they? So I thought maybe some acorns.
Why not a beaver?
A beaver is a great idea, Claire.
You still cannot pass a Scottish note in anywhere in England, and for fear it will not be accepted as legal tender.
It is legal tender.
Of course
but it is legal. Yeah, it is legal tender, same as an Ulster note.
Yeah, and see the minute they start to hold it up in the air, I'm like, I'm going to get you.
It's legal tender.
It's legal tender.
I prefer to use cash in most cases, OK? But we're finding that more and more people are not actually using cash, and then the Bank of Wokery have now said, let's get rid of the historical features on it and let's move on with something more modern.
No,
so I'm glad you like that,
They
Norman.
want to get rid of it because it gives them control, it gives governments control, that they can see everything you're spending, everything you're doing and how you're spending it. And I think it's really creepy.
So do I.
The other thing that's wrong with it, actually, buying by card, is that the people who own the transaction between the retailer and the customer are all American companies.
Yeah.
And they take a rake off of about 1%, 2% for nothing.
Do you remember?
That's all money going out the country.
Right, and by the time it's passed on, if you tap and go, then it's diminished, whereas if you had the physical £10, it's still £10.
Well, it's interesting that we three would like the feel of notes. And
I like the feel of notes as well.
That's four of us.
I feel rich when I've got cash in my
Younger
pocket.
people in general, I mean, I couldn't give my kids money. You say...
You can give me money anytime.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, 10 to 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Now, Nigel Farage is on course to become the next Prime Minister if an election were held tomorrow.
Yes, a YouGov mega poll of 13,000 respondents found that the Reform leader would win 311 seats, which would leave a hung parliament.
Political strategist James Frayne is here to dissect all the information. James, a huge poll. What should we make of it?
Well, I think the first thing to say is it feels completely believable. It's been in line with now dozens of polls over the course of the last 3 to 6 months. And I think politicians from Labour and the Conservatives have this idea that somehow politics is just going to bounce back to where it always was, that the pendulum swings one way, it swings the other way, it's swung to Labour, then it's going to swing back to the Tories, and you occasionally get these flashes in the pan, but they'll somehow evaporate. So I think there is this sense that it's just sort of not real, this reform surge. But the polling evidence has been so clear for so long now that reform are real, they're here to stay, and both parties have got to be really very, very nervous about what's going to happen to them.
Now, obviously, this poll will very much worry Labour, but it will be the whole of the left that is worried by this, because I think it's been assumed until now that although Reform will probably be the biggest party, that somehow the left could cobble together a coalition between Labour and the Lib Dems, maybe the Greens. But actually, all those three parties together are still smaller than a majority under this poll.
Yeah, I think as we get closer to election, minds will start being focused. You'll start getting on the left some sort of more serious tactical voting operation. There's no way that that's not going to eat into where Reform are at the moment. But yes, you are completely right that at this point in time, the left have been just completely decimated. I think that reflects something sort of quite broad and fundamental within left-wing politics at the moment, which is they have just drifted away from mainstream politics. So, you know, in the past, even, 20 years ago, when I first started working in the political world, most people on the left talked about jobs and growth and investment. And, I may have disagreed with them on their analysis and certainly their solutions. They often preferred higher taxes, more welfare spending, etc. But you could have a normal conversation with about them. The modern left have pivoted into really very, very niche things for most people. Their obsession with foreign policy, particularly the Middle East, their obsession with things like identity. This stuff has just completely lost ordinary working class voters behind. I mean, they just do not know what left-wing politicians and activists are talking about for the most part. So they have a very fundamental problem, which is why I think they're really going to struggle to eat into Reform's lead at the moment.
Certainly agree there. Interesting stuff. Political strategist James Frayne there. Thank you so much for joining us. Interesting, Miriam, because, of course, Reform UK don't get, with that poll, they still don't get over the 326-seat threshold, so there would need to be some deals done with the Tories. Interesting.
That's right. And the problem is, with first past the post, it's just so hard to predict, because even in that poll, Reform are only on 28%, I think, in that form, and yet almost half the seats. It's so difficult to work out under our system. So
and a long way to go. Long way to go. Anyway, still ahead.
Will the introduction of digital IDs be the death of the Labour Party?
Well, this is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a fine day once again for most of us, but turning increasingly cloudy towards the east and across central parts, whilst it becomes windy in the far north. In fact, it's a breezy day for many, but the strongest winds will increasingly be the north and west of Scotland as well as Northern Ireland. That breeze coming from the south means it's a little milder compared with recent days, but as the skies cloud over across the Midlands, the south and southeast, not going to feel quite as warm here. 16 or 17 Celsius, 1 or 2 showers coming out of that cloud. Otherwise, it's dry for the vast majority, and we keep the sunny skies for much of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales as we end the day. But you can see a few showers there across East Anglia and the southeast on Friday evening, so it's not entirely dry. A few breaks in the cloud here and there, but generally it is a cloudy picture. That does, of course, mean that overnight it's not going to be quite as cold. But for Scotland, Northern Ireland, plenty of bright weather as the sun goes down, and although it's windy, that wind's coming from the south, so it's not a cold wind compared with the start of the week where the winds were coming from the north. Now, on Friday night, we're going to see increasingly patchy cloud across many parts of the UK, and, of course, that breeze, so the air stirred up. That means a frost-free night for the vast majority, with temperatures several degrees higher compared with previous nights this week. So not a chilly start to Saturday, but it will be a wet start for Northern Ireland and Western Scotland as a fairly active weather front pushes into the west. It's going to slow down as it moves eastwards, only slowly peeling away from Northern Ireland and Western Scotland to allow brighter skies by the afternoon here, whilst it pushes into the rest of Scotland by lunchtime, western parts of England and Wales. Patchy rain towards the south, more persistent wet weather in the northwest, whilst it stays drier in the southeast with highs of 18 or 19 Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A90 southbound is partially blocked just before Ardully roundabout due to a broken down vehicle. If you're on the A64 eastbound around the junction with the A1036 near York, be aware there is a broken down vehicle with one of 2 lanes closed. Similarly, in Surrey on the M25 anti-clockwise, a lane remains shut between junction 14 and junction 13 because of a vehicle unable to move. Also, on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are facing disruptions between Stafford and Nuneaton, and Greater Anglia routes from London Liverpool Street to Tottenham Hale are similarly affected. Stay informed for more travel news at gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Friday the 26th of September. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Alex Armstrong and Miriam Cates.
Well, backlash grows as the government announces that every adult in the country is set to get mandatory digital IDs.
Yes, that's the breaking news this morning, as in a desperate bid to stop the boats, Sir Keir Starmer hopes these IDs will prevent people from working illegally. But is this unacceptable state control, and will it even work?
Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Helen Whatley is not convinced, by the way.
Don't want to have a society where people can be stopped in the street and asked to show their ID. Completely opposed to that.
And the Reform UK leader, Nigel Farage, has also slammed the move.
I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do.
And someone's got to do it, so Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy has defended the policy.
We think there's a really positive element of this to a lot of people across the United Kingdom, but it also will help us to deal with something that's of significant concern to a lot of people, including many of your viewers, and that's illegal migration.
Well, the Prime Minister will today admit that the Labour Party got it wrong on migration as he prepares to make the case for a national renewal based on British values and difference under the same flag. We'll be hearing from Sir Keir Starmer from the world stage shortly.
That's right, I'm here in Westminster. Sir Keir Starmer to address a conference here within 1 hour and set out why he thinks that patriotic renewal can come from the left and why the left got it wrong on migration. A big moment here for Sir Keir Starmer and this government.
Yes, well, despite Labour Party conference, Nigel Farage, a bombshell poll today shows that he's on course to be the Prime Minister, leaving the Tories on the brink of extinction. That is that mega poll from YouGov. We'll be digging into it.
And RAF airmen win the battle for vegan uniforms. Yes, the spam busters must be provided with eco-friendly boots, belts and berets on request. Putin will be quaking in his boots.
Well, it's just bad news for Keir Starmer every day of the week at the moment, isn't it? He's at Labour Party conference about to give this speech today. And what's he talking about? Difference under the same flag?
Under the same... Yes, this is at the Global Progress Action, which fills me with dread, just the title. But what does that even mean, difference under the same flag? I mean, flags are supposed to unite. They're there to show what side you're on in war. I mean, that's the origin of flags, isn't it?
I just don't get it.
It's a meaningless word salad.
It is word salad, isn't it? And they're just trying to find ways, I think, ways to divide people, but say that they're patriotic at the same time. And we know they don't. They hate all this stuff, really, don't they? Labour Party supporters don't like flag waving. They hate it, despite Keir Starmer trying to plaster it all over all their identity. But there we go.
But this is the mistake the left make. They think that in order to bring unity, you've got to celebrate your differences. But actually, unity needs a central vision that everybody can unite around. It doesn't mean that people can't be individuals and have different cultures and things like that, but you need a uniting vision, otherwise you don't have unity.
Yeah,
anyway.
Part of this digital ID, it's called Brick Card, and I'm sure will be slapped with the Union Jack on it, and I saw the lefties saying, I love the idea, but I hate the idea it's called Brick Card, which actually just was absolutely hilarious. Anyway, what do you think? gbnews.com/you'll say. But first, here's your news with Sophia Hill.
Alex, thank you. Very good morning. It's just gone at 10 o'clock. These are the top stories this morning. The Prime Minister unveils plans for a free digital ID in a bid to crack down on illegal working and make it easier for people to access public services. The government says that the free ID will be held on people's phones and will simply simplify access to services and replace the need for paper records. Sir Keir says it's an enormous opportunity as a public consultation will be launched later this year to shape the rollout, with support promised for people without smartphones. Reform UK says it's a cynical ploy to fool voters that something is being done about illegal immigration, with the Tories branding the move a desperate gimmick to stop the small boats. Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Helen Whately spoke to GB News earlier on today.
Don't want to have a society where people can be stopped in the street and asked to show their ID. Completely opposed to that. And the fact is, this was an announcement rushed out at the last minute, and it's a last-minute thing from Keir Starmer to try and distract from all the problems. It's just a smokescreen for the failures of him and his government.
It comes as Sir Keir Starmer has admitted that Labour wants shield away from people's concerns over immigration as he pledges to take a tougher stance on illegal entry into the UK. Sir Keir argues it has been too easy for people to work in the shadow economy and stay illegally. His comments come ahead of the Global Progress Action Summit in London today, where he'll tell fellow leaders that relying on migration to plug workforce gaps is not compassionate left-wing politics, and urge progressives to fight division with what he calls a patriotic renewal of Britain. Nigel Farage is on course to be the next Prime Minister, according to a new YouGov poll. According to the YouGov MRP polling prediction, if there was an election held tomorrow, there would be a hung parliament, with Reform UK winning 311 of the 650 seats, just 15 short of the winning line of 326. In practice, it would be impossible for anyone other than the party leader, Mr Farage, to secure the largest number of MP backers and ultimately become Prime Minister. Meanwhile, a defiant Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to lead from the front into the next general election, despite speculation over his future. The Prime Minister dismissed calls for wholesale change in national politics from Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, insisting that Labour can and will deliver for the country. Sir Keir also branded the Conservatives, quote, basically dead, and urged voters to reject what he called the politics of grievance from Nigel Farage's Reform UK. Andy Burnham, meanwhile, says that he remains completely committed to Manchester, though he has not ruled out a future leadership bid. Now, in the last few minutes, a member of the rap trio Kneecap has arrived at Woolwich Crown Court this morning as he's set to find out whether his terrorism charge will be thrown out. Liam O'Hanna, who performs under the stage name Mo Chara, is accused of displaying a flag in support of proscribed terror organisation Hezbollah at a gig at the O2 Forum in Kentish Town in November last year. The 27-year-old's defence team argues that the case should be thrown out, citing a technical error in the way the charge was brought against him. We'll bring you the latest on the story as it develops. Now, the Conservatives are drawing a red line on welfare, pledging to reinstate the two-child benefits cap if Labour scraps it. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch said that lifting the policy would be a reckless act when the UK is, quote, already living beyond our means. The government is under pressure from Labour MPs, charities and campaigners to end the cap, which critics say keeps children in poverty. But the Conservatives are arguing that it ensures fairness and stops spiralling welfare costs. A multi-billion-pound boost is coming to Britain's high streets, parks and public spaces. The government's announced up to £5 billion for its new Pride in Place programme, backing 339 neighbourhoods to lead local renewal. That includes £2 million a year for a decade in 169 areas, totalling to £3.5 billion. That's alongside £1.5 billion already pledged to 75 other communities. And a rare Asian elephant calf has been born at Blackpool Zoo after a 2-year pregnancy. The baby elephant Zaya arrived at 10:30 on the evening of the 2nd of September when her mother Tara delivered her first offspring. Zoo staff in Blackpool had spent years preparing for this moment, implementing careful planning to manage potential complications during the lengthy pregnancy and birth. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in just under half an hour, but now it's back to Alex and Miriam.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News, with, of course, myself, Alex Armstrong, and Miriam Cates.
Well, our top story this morning is that the government is set to announce the launch of free digital ID cards for all adults.
Sir Keir Starmer has said the Brit card will help to curb illegal migration by preventing migrants from slipping into the shadow economy.
But the plans have faced backlash as well over 500,000 people have signed. In fact, we're at 700,000 people now have signed a petition demanding that Number 10 reverse the policy.
The Tories have branded the move a desperate gimmick. Earlier, GB News spoke to Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Helen Whately.
We don't want to have a society where people can be stopped in the street and asked to show their ID. Completely opposed to that. And the fact is, this was an announcement rushed out at the last minute, and it's a last-minute thing from Keir Starmer to try and distract from all the problems. It's just a smokescreen for the failures of him and his government.
Well, the Lib Dems say that they can't support the move either. This is what they've tweeted. People shouldn't be criminalised just because they don't want to hand over their private data.
Well, former UK leader Nigel Farage also raised concerns over state interference.
I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do, what we spend and where we go. And we, in Reform, are wholly opposed to it in every single way.
Well, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is set to speak in about an hour's time. But in the meantime, let's speak to GB News political editor Chris Hope. Chris, good morning. This was not in the manifesto. It will come as a surprise to many people.
It wasn't, was it? Because in the manifesto, the government said it would smash the gangs. That was how they're going to deal with the small boats crossings. That, so far, has manifestly failed, with as many as 50,000 coming across this year, forecast by the end of this year. That's why they're looking at different ways, different levers to pull. Now, when Emmanuel Macron came over, the French president, he talked about the fact we have no ID cards in this country. We're one of the few in Europe that don't have that. And he was saying that that is acting as a pull factor for why people want to cross the channel and then disappear into the grey or the black economy. And that's why it looks like the PM will now be announcing shortly that we will be having mandatory ID cards if you want to work in the UK. But look at those numbers, 700,000 people already signing a petition against that. The other parties united against it, although the Tory party, I'm not sure quite where they are, but I listened closely there to Helen Whately. She talks about mandatory cars to show on the street. I think whether it's about workers or not, I'm just not quite clear where the Tories are. There was definitely they weren't clearly against it last night when we saw those remarks from Kemi Badenoch. This morning already we've had Lisa Nandy out defending the policy. Here's what she told GB News Breakfast moments ago.
We think there's a really positive element of this to a lot of people across the United Kingdom, but it also will help us to deal with something that's of significant concern to a lot of people, including many of your viewers, and that's illegal migration.
So the question is, are we all being told to have ID cards because the government can't control the southern border? Is it a policy failure by the government to control 50,000 people coming across here illegally, meaning that 30 million of us must have ID cards? That is the question I think the PM's got to answer. We'll be hearing later from the Prime Minister in about an hour's time. He will make clear that the left has got it wrong in the past on migration. The left shied away from people's concerns about illegal migration. The belief, he'll say, that uncontrolled legal migration was nothing but good news from an economy should never have been accepted by the left, he'll say. He'll call it the defining choice of our times, a politics of predatory grievance, preying on the problems of working people, using that infrastructure of division against a politics of national renewal. So he's going to wrap himself, frankly, in the union flag today and say, look, we can deal with this together, and let's see how that plays out. But there's a lot of people concerned, and the detail of these plans for ID cards will be so important. For example, if you're not on the internet or don't have a smartphone, 2.4 million pensioners don't have a smartphone, 4 million are not competent on the internet. What will they do? Will they have an actual card to show? Will grannies be asked for their papers? That is where we're going, and the government's going to find a way to combat that and convince people it's a good idea.
GB News political editor there, Christopher Ho, thank you so much for joining us. And joining us for the back of Christopher, we've now got the Executive Director of Politics at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, Ryan Wayne. Ryan, thank you very much for joining us. A lot of our audience would like to understand how exactly digital ID stops illegal immigration. If you take Germany, Sweden, France as examples of this, well, their crisis is actually worse than ours. So the litmus test here doesn't look like it's passed so far, Ryan. How will it stop illegal migration?
Well, Alex, Miriam, thank you so much for having me on. I think it's as simple as this. I think a universal digital ID makes life incredibly difficult for people who shouldn't be here, and it makes life much easier for people who should. So if you think about it, the pull of the informal labour market, and your viewers will know this, is real and felt. People can come and do illegal work here, and the draw is that they can open the bank account with a fake passport, they can set up an online remittance account and send money back home. A digital ID, almost overnight, completely shuts that down. So make the distinction between working illegally and living illegally. The common sense is that we need to stop it being easy for people to live illegally here, and that's what digital ID does. But I also think it's critical in that it upgrades our public services. People are so fed up with how we interact with different services, how we have to open a bank account, how we have to prove our ID if we go to the post office to pick up a parcel. This changes all of that and makes life infinitely easier for the British public and puts us in control of our data.
But Ryan, most people don't have a problem with proving their ID when it's necessary. You've got a passport, driver's licence. There are other forms of photo ID for people who need it. It's not a problem. Most people don't see that as a friction in their everyday life. And yet the risks that come with this are phenomenal in terms of having all somebody's data in the same place. It's potential for hacking, but also a future government to use it in quite an authoritarian way. And what do you say to the charge that actually the Tony Blair Institute, Tony Blair himself, has been trying to introduce ID cards for over 20 years now, and you're just landing on the topic of immigration because it's a popular issue at the moment in order to convince the public once and for all that this is what's needed?
Well, I think to start at the end, I think the physical ID cards, they belong in 2005 with a whole host of other things. We're talking about something infinitely different here, which is the better using people's data in order to personalise our public services. But I disagree about people being happy to hand over their passports or driver's licences. I'm trying to set up a school get my daughter into school, and I have to send across a bank statement over email, and I'm going through putting black lines through transactions. Not there's anything dodgy that I don't want people to see. Digital ID changes that. When I worked in Sainsbury's and I had to check people's ID, they wanted to buy booze. I look at it and I can see their date of birth, their address, a digital ID. Again, it just gives the information that people need.
So it won't just be used for getting a job. You're saying it could be used in ordinary, everyday life, even in Sainsbury's?
Well, in the same way that a passport or driver's licence is, yeah, why not? I mean...
But that's not what the government is saying at the moment.
I don't speak for the government, and I think the government's right to alight on this problem of illegal migration. It's a huge issue, and we need to do whatever we can in order to stop that. But I also think that people are fed up, actually, with the state of the country. I think there is this pervasive sense of decline, that things are getting worse in Britain. And I think we should be doing all that we can to modernise it. At the end of the day, that's what people have come to expect from their lives outside the government. You interact with anything online, and the data we give over, the service we get back, it's infinitely different.
Right. Many people are concerned about the security risks here. We've seen situations in India where hundreds of thousands of people who have digital ID have had their identities indefinitely stolen, their biometric data stolen. Our governments are infamous for data leaks. The Afghan data breach is just one example of that that's cost this country billions and billions of pounds. How on earth can we trust such a porous institution with terrible cybersecurity that's being attacked by foreign institutions to look after all of our data in one place?
I really welcome this question. I think this is a serious point of debate that we need to look at in the implementation. I look at Ukraine for inspiration in many ways. Ukraine has a digital ID that has withstood daily attacks from the Russians. The Russians are like nothing more than to attack and get into that digital ID. So we need to learn from them and make sure that we have that security infrastructure around whatever we develop here. And I actually think it makes it safer. I mean, you saw today 8,000 records leaked from a children's nursery. That's people sending the data that I mentioned before, whether it's a passport or a driver's license, to a private organisation. Again, a digital ID that's properly secure, where people feel empowered and control that data, can see who's accessed it. That changes all of that and knocks that completely out, whilst also shutting down the shadow economy that is making Britain such a pull to those poor people who are willing to risk their lives across the channel.
All right.
Well, Ryan Wayne from the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, thank you very much for joining us. I'm afraid, Alex, I am utterly unconvinced. The reason we have a problem with shadow working is because there's so many employers who are willing to employ people that they know are illegal. Often they're immigrants themselves, part of gangs. They're not suddenly going to change their tune because they have to demand a digital ID. I mean, this is magical thinking.
It's completely cynical to use the argument of illegal immigration, which is the #1 issue in our country right now, by all standards, frankly, to sell us digital ID. And I think the timing is also cynical. Sir Keir Starmer is on the ropes. He's got his own party splintering around him. He's got resignations coming out left, right and centre. And what does he do? Releases one of the most controversial policies in this country at this opportune moment. How about that?
That was put out by the Tony Blair Institute 3 days ago, and a very interesting slip from our guest there when he admitted that it might have to be scanned in the supermarket.
It will be. You know it will be.
Mission creep, and it's only 10:20.
Well, as well as announcing digital ID, Sir Keir Starmer is planning to reclaim the British flag in his speech shortly.
Yes, the Prime Minister will reinforce that the St George's and Union flags are for every citizen and should be symbols of unity.
We're joined by flag campaigner Ross Childs. Ross, thank you so much for joining us. Ross, I guess good to see you, my friend.
Great background.
Yeah, fantastic as ever, Ross. Look, this is a bit cynical from Keir Starmer, I think, because he's jumping on a bandwagon that was at least started by patriotic British people who were fed up of not seeing the British flag flying, but seeing every other flag under the sun. Now he wants to jump on the bandwagon, despite calling everyone who was waving a flag a couple of weeks ago far right.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, to be honest, mate. He's talking about reclaiming it, but unfortunately it's already been claimed. They can bang on about it being far right, but, I saw you there, Alex, at the rally on the 13th of September. It was your nans, it was your mums, your dads, your kids, just fed up with what's going on in this country, just like everybody else.
Yeah, indeed.
But surely we must welcome the idea that Keir Starmer, who is our Prime Minister, wants to get behind the idea of a flag being the symbol of national unity. It's his flag as much as anyone else's.
Yes, I agree it is. But as you said earlier, he's on the ropes. And this is like the buzzword, the hot topic right now. And he's just clutching at straws, trying to get on board and finding some way to weasel his way through to the end of his term, which he's probably not going to be able to do.
Yeah, Ross, you're a flag campaigner. I don't know what that means, but can you give us an idea? If you've put up any flags, how many do you think you've put up?
Well, I'm up and down the polls like Fireman Sam. I've done hundreds, mate. Hundreds. I'm in Cardiff at the moment, and I'm doing a podcast this afternoon, and we're going to go put up some Welsh flags and some Union Jacks, because it is about everybody. It's not about just England. We're in this together. We're all screwed. So let's make it known. This is a tangible thing that the government and politicians have to see, and it's a reminder that we're angry at you. We're very angry at you. So you need to do something about it.
Do you think, though, that the concerns of those on the left, including Keir Starmer, the Labour Party, that this will turn from something that is about positively celebrating our national identity into something more sinister, perhaps with an ethnic element to it? Do you think they are legitimate concerns?
Absolutely not, no. So I did a live stream the other day and we had minorities joining us, putting flags up as well. I think it's just something that the left use, like the word Nazi. You know, it's lost its meaning. They're using anything they can in their arsenal just to undermine everything good that's going on in the world.
Yeah, all right, that's Ross Childs. Ross, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck on your flag campaigning. Good to see you, my friend.
On his digital ID card, where it says occupation, he can put flag campaigner.
Yeah, that won't get him very far, will it? Doors shutting, hospitals closing around him. There we go. All right, up next.
RAF airmen have won the battle for vegan uniforms. Yep, the spam busters must be provided with eco-friendly boots, belts and berets on request.
Now, Putin's going to be shaking in his boots, isn't he? You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I do think it is the most beautiful we've ever seen Princess Catherine look before. What a gown. That was the British designer that she chose, Philippa Lepley, and then she matched that fantastic couture gown with her favourite tiara, which is the Queen Mary Lover's Knot tiara, which was commissioned for Queen Mary. That was the late Queen Elizabeth's grandmother in 1914. It just suits her so well, and with her having that incredible hair and such a beautiful face, and she has that supermodel figure which just can carry off. She could put a bin bag on and still look that's true. Drop dead stunning. President Trump, he was just thrilled. He couldn't take his eyes off her. And I think, so Princess Catherine's taken Melania, the First Lady, out into the gardens in Windsor, and they're going to be talking about nature and how nature's great for young children. And the Princess of Wales is going to talk about how nature was a great healer for her when she was going through her battle with cancer. But gosh, she has bounced back in such an enormous way. When we think about a year ago where we were with her to now and how incredible she looks, and she's beaming and she's happy, and I just think she is the most wonderful asset we have for this country. And if the late Queen could see now how her and the Prince of Wales, William, conducted themselves last night. And the most powerful man in the world, Donald Trump, is really, really, really fond of them. And he said he thinks the world of William, as well as his father, the King. So I'm hoping, you know, obviously, that when that time comes, when William does ascend to the throne, that special relationship between our two countries is able to continue. Yes, it really is. Seeing the Princess of Wales, she's just amazing.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 25 minutes past 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Alex and Miriam.
We're joined by political commentator Chloe Dobbs, social media star as well, by the way, and Labour councillor Sebastian Salek in the studio to go through the papers today. Right, what have you got for us, Chloe?
The first one we've got is RAFM and Win vegan battle. So you'll probably be a bit surprised by my opinion on this, because I do support them. So the RAF crews have won their right to have a vegan uniform if they request it. It does have to all be safety checked, so the boots, although they're not made of proper leather, they will check they're proper hard and sturdy, and they're not going to make them unsafe if they were in battle. I think that this is common sense, to be honest. I don't think that this is really a big issue. I think, very sadly, choosing to not eat meat has become something that people think is political and some super crazy left-wing thing. The reality is that there are so many people who choose not to eat meat that are not really that political at all. It's just the ones that are the craziest with the blue hair, who are screaming on Just Stop Oil marches that you hear from. So people think it's something crazy. And, you know, interestingly, there's been a lot of pushback on this, saying, oh, I don't think they'd be fit enough for battle. But I think the science is quite clear that is not the case. And you've got loads of athletes that have gone vegan to support their performance. I mean, Serena Williams isn't exactly a weak lady. Patrick Babunian, considered one of the strongest men in the world.
But Chloe,
all sorts of people.
Aren't these
UFC fighter.
Two separate issues? So the athletes choosing to be vegan for performance reasons, whereas in the army, one of the purposes of the army, or at least one of the ways that the army achieves its purpose, is to make everybody the same. That is the purpose of the uniform, that's the purpose of following orders. The idea that you campaign for a particular political belief and have your needs met, I think it's the antithesis of what the army is.
I don't think it is political.
It's totally political. Come on,
I'm sorry,
come on, Chloe.
But
the
what
fact
you
they
choose,
said
you're not going to
it's closed.
Eat meat, that's fine.
No,
you should wear regulation boots.
I have to disagree with you, Chloe, because, you know, you're joining the military for a specific reason. And what they're doing, this is a political demand of their political beliefs.
How is this political? How is this left-wing or right-wing, what you choose to put in your mouth and what you choose to wear?
Because you're not consuming it, you're wearing it as part of standard military uniform, which is something you will be aware of when you sign up to the job. And I would just say to those that think this is such a big deal, don't join the military.
I'm going to come in here. I'm going to back you up, Chloe, because I think this is fine. Do you know what? I'm not a vegan. I love a massive steak any day of the week, but I think this is about making the army a better employer. We need a strong armed forces. We can't exclude people on the basis of their dietary choices or anything else. So if we can be a little bit more flexible, what's so bad about that?
But you see, that is the liberal view that's got us into this mess, because the report that was leaked yesterday, actually, into the armed forces, basically said that the army don't know what their purpose is anymore. And the fact that they're using all these DEI targets, like 30% women by 2030...
But this isn't DEI. I would say that whether you get into the army or not should be on the basis of, do you pass the test? Do you pass all the fitness tests?
Are you willing to wear regulation uniform?
So if it looks different, I would say no, don't do this. And I'm not saying that this is a right, but I think if it's a fairly easy thing for the RAF to do, and it looks the same and you can't really tell the difference, and as I say, they've been safety tested, the boots are just as hard and just as durable, I really don't see an issue with it. And what I do hate is when DEI is used to bring people into the army just because they're, say, a person of colour. If they don't meet the fitness testing requirements, we can't have a declining standard.
Can I make this point that veterans will be screaming at the TV about this? Because I tell you what they'll say, and I speak to a lot of veterans, some of them in my immediate family. One of the things a Marine has to do is kill an animal on the job, right? That is part of survival, and you are meant to survive in the toughest environments where you have no food, no safety, and you're telling me that they're more concerned about their boots being leather than they are about having to, unfortunately, kill an animal to survive. If that's where they draw the line, then they're not fit to serve.
So I think you need to make sure that they're fit to serve, and you need to ask...
That is a mental preparedness,
like, I'm vegan, but if you put me in the wild or I was serving in the army and I needed to kill an animal to survive, would I do it and would I eat it? Yes, I would, and I think you need to ask people those questions if they're coming into the army, and as I say,
but would you join the army if you knew you had to kill an animal as part of the test?
Yes.
OK.
Exactly, and you have to be honest with people and say this is part of the job. As I said, I'm not for DEI targets and whatnot. I'm bringing people in just to tick boxes. We have to make sure that our army is ready and capable to do what it needs to do.
Let's also distinguish between combat and non-combat roles. If we're talking about DEI, yes, if you're a combat role, you have to be the fittest. I don't care what gender you are. But if you are an engineer, for example, brilliant. Let's encourage more women to be engineers, whether that's in the army or elsewhere. That's a really positive thing.
All right, well, let's move on to this other stuff, because I saw this last night, and I tell you what, the audience went nuts. Tony Blair, we can't get rid of this bloke. He's back like a bad plague. He now is ready and willing to sacrifice his time. This is words. Sacrifice his time to lead Gaza, the interim president of Gaza, Miriam.
Well, Sebastian, of course, when he stood down as Prime Minister, he was sent as the Middle East peace envoy.
Yeah.
So perhaps he's just carrying on.
He's got form here. So he spent 8 years representing the Quartet. So that's the US, the UN, the EU and Russia. Shows how far we've come since then. But he's got experience in the Middle East. He's got experience solving...
You're right. He has. He's got experience in the Middle East blowing it up.
Yeah.
Ireland, Northern Ireland, a big peace process there, which he led very early on in his first term as Prime Minister. I think he'd be a brilliant choice, to be honest.
I think it'd be what a slap in the face of the people in the Middle East who cannot stand this man. He was the start of the beginning of all the problems we have today by starting the wars, like, you know, the weapons of mass destruction stuff that never managed to materialise. This is the sort of stuff that people will scratch their heads going, Tony Blair, of all the people.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't exactly have the best track record when it comes to stabilisation of the Middle East. We've got Gaza, which is incredibly unstable, but a lot of people blame him, at least in part, for the destabilisation of Iraq and the rise of various dodgy terrorist groups consequently. And I just think, why can't you just retire, Tony Blair? You had your time as the Prime Minister of this country, one of the greatest roles you could possibly have. But now he's got this Tony Blair Institute think tank. And fine, if you want to put together some ideas as to how Gaza should be governed, but to say, I'm going to do it, I'm the man to lead this, the Gaza Strip, it's just absolutely crazy. And I'm all for them suggesting, or maybe we should encourage some of the Arab states to take over, so that because it would be very controversial for Israel to be running it. I think if the Arab states did it, that would be better. And we need to make sure that Hamas are not in charge. Great. But to say, I'm going to lead Gaza, it just seems very pompous.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to leave it there, but there will be more digital ID cards in Gaza than there will be buildings if Tony Blair takes over. But there we go. OK, thank you both for joining us. The Prime... we're going to carry on, actually. We're just going to carry on for another... We'll carry on for one more, because...
Can I ask Sebastian a question?
Yeah.
So, Tony Blair is a fascinating figure because, in many ways, he is the left's most successful leader in over a century. And whether you like what he achieved or not, he changed this country radically. Oh, we are now ready. Hold that thought. We'll come back to you. But the Prime Minister, current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has met with his Canadian counterpart ahead of the Global Progress Action Summit in London, where Sir Keir is expected to announce the introduction of digital ID cards.
Well, here he is.
Well, please. Welcome to London. This is now your second inward bilateral. That's since you were elected as Prime Minister, and of course I did a bilateral with you just a few months ago in Canada. And so I think that shows the strength of the relationship between our two countries, but also the strength of our personal relationship. So it's really good to be able to warmly welcome you back. Congratulations again on a very good G7 summit a few months ago. We really made some progress there on the issues that are such importance. And obviously we've got Ukraine to discuss, we've got the Middle East to discuss, and thank you for the way we've been able to work together on both those issues, because that makes such a difference when we're able to coordinate in that way. Of course, the bilateral relationship is very strong, trade and the economy, the issues that we touched on in the previous bilaterals, we're really pushing forward now. So on all of that, we're very close, very strong. There's only one issue we're going to disagree on, and that is a certain game of rugby tomorrow when we come up against each other. And but apart from that, it's I think everything we do is in absolutely lockstep. So you're very, very welcome. It's very, very good to have you here.
Well, it is. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'll just reiterate a few things. First, it was important when I began my premiership to come here to spend time together and establish that basis that you reinforced when you came to Canada for the G7 and also for Ottawa, and the economic and security partnership that's deepening between our countries. But I also want to be, I want to salute your leadership here in Ukraine, in the coalition of willing, in the Middle East, more broadly in this next phase of multilateralism. And it's essential, and I look forward to the chance to go into detail. I'm grateful that the relationship is so strong, because I'm now going to test the relationship.
But I think we're going to test each other.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to wear the Canadian women's rugby shirt, which of course is signed
Red
by...
Roses.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, fair enough. We are... Look at that. They're showing up unsponsored. But yeah, you seem to have managed one. Okay, well, very good. Well, it's going to be a great match.
Yeah.
And we're going to agree, disagree... No, disagree.
Agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree.
Fantastic.
After we win. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so
I'll hand
much.
it over.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Guys, we get questions. Thank you. Here you go. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I am.
Here you go.
I am. Like, amazingly. I mean, it's quite big of you. No, I can't.
Sorry. We are playing.
Oh, there you have it. All the charisma floating out of that interview. I tell you what, I almost couldn't keep my eyes open for a second there. But, you know, this
That's
is it.
because you were working till midnight last night.
It might have
Come
been.
on, let's be
Yeah,
fair.
it might have been. But, you know, it's very interesting that Mark Carney's around, isn't it? This is the man who's pushing a lot of the digital banking stuff. He's there with Keir Starmer. He's pushing digital IDs. It's like the 4 horsemen of the end of the planet, isn't it? Anyway, 2 of the 4. Anyway. Yes.
Well, I'm trying to provide some balance there, Alex, but I'm not sure I can find any. Of course, he's only Prime Minister because of Trump. The Conservatives were on course to win the election in Canada, but when Trump became president and started talking about colonising Canada, suddenly the Liberals saw a resurgence. So there you go. Trump has so much influence.
That's it. Well, still to come, we'll be crossing live to central London as Keir Starmer is expected to announce digital IDs for all. But backlash is growing, isn't it? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a largely sunny day for many of us yesterday, today is going to be a fair bit cloudier for many because the high pressure that's dominated our weather through much of this week has shifted away a little bit further towards the east, allowing for a bit more of an easterly flow across England in particular, and so we're dragging in some cloud from the east. As a result, through this afternoon, central and eastern parts of England are going to be pretty cloudy, and some of that cloud filtering into parts of Wales, southwest England, even across eastern parts of Scotland, and there may be 1 or 2 showers around as well. Where the cloud's thick, particularly in the southeast, a bit of a fresh feel to things, but further north and west with some sunshine, feeling a fair bit warmer. Then, as we go through this evening, actually, there's a chance of some cloud breaking up across parts of East Anglia and Kent, for example, so some late sunshine here perhaps, but also a few showers to watch out for. Staying cloudier there across much of central England, large chunks of Wales and southern England as well. Meanwhile, across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and some areas of northern England, there will be a few breaks in the clouds, some late sunshine for quite a few places here. Staying mostly dry as we go overnight, not totally dry, that's because there is a band of rain coming in from the west. That's going to feed in across parts of Northern Ireland, later into western Scotland as well. Elsewhere, yes, a largely dry picture, and some of the cloud will be breaking up, but there will be a little bit more cloud around than some recent nights. As a result, temperatures dropping a little bit where we get the clear skies, but perhaps not as low as recent nights for many, though across parts of the east-southeast of England, actually it could be, again, quite chilly and perhaps a bit more mist and fog than we've seen through some recent mornings here. As we go through tomorrow then, this band of rain across western parts is going to be quite heavy, could cause some impacts across parts of Northern Ireland, western, southwestern Scotland, 50, maybe 70 millimetres of rain building up in just 5 to 6 hours perhaps in some places, but across central and eastern parts, a drier story.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M6 southbound, a broken down vehicle is affecting traffic flow with one lane shut between junction 8 and 7, where delays are expected. In Surrey on the M25 anti-clockwise, a lane closure between junction 14 and 13 is causing delays due to a vehicle breakdown. On the A64 eastbound in York at the intersection with the A1036, a similar incident is impacting motorists. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast is experiencing significant disruptions between Stafford and Nuneaton, as well as Carlisle and Penrith. Greater Anglia is also experiencing issues from London Liverpool Street to Tottenham Hale. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Alex Armstrong, and Miriam Cates.
Now, some interesting figures published today, Alex. The ONS have published their annual population estimates where they estimate how much the population of UK has increased or decreased over the previous year. So they're saying for the year to mid-2024, which is their most recent records, the population of the UK increased by 755,000 people. That's 1.1%, and it's the second highest ever UK population growth in a year, and it's all net migration because basically births and deaths are pretty much equal. So that entire population, 775,000 people.
It is
extraordinary.
Astronomical. And when you see it on a graph that goes all the way back to 1949, you see how huge it is. We've got our panel, Sebastian Salick and Chloe Dobbs here. Sebastian, Boris Johnson, who, in my opinion, is the architect of this massive jump in this, and this, it literally is like a line that's almost vertical here, was out defending his record the other day.
Yeah, pretty stunned by that. I mean, I have an interesting theory on this one, and it's a stay with me on it, but I think if you care about reducing immigration, the issue you should be focused on most is building more houses, because people come here to work, and the reason that they're doing that is because those jobs... You're giving me a look here, but they come for...
Only 25% of visas are work visas, that's a fact.
Yeah, but a lot of them are coming to study. They're not going to stay for very long. A big chunk
but the minority are coming to work.
But they're coming to work to fill jobs that we can't fill. There are young people who can't afford houses, therefore are not having babies. Those babies should be doing those jobs, but they're not. So we have a declining birth rate. That is a really serious issue.
Well, look, we're going to have to move on, unfortunately, Chloe, but we'll come back to you. You'll be with us in the next hour, so we will talk about this story because it's very important to you at home. And a new survey has revealed, though, that the scale of sexual misconduct facing students at universities is out.
Yes, the Office for Students has found that 14% of students have been the victims of sexual violence, including rape and unwanted touching, while 1 in 4 reported experiencing sexual harassment.
Well, joining us now is the assistant editor at The Critic and co-author of Pornocracy, Jo Bartosz. Jo, thank you so much for joining us. Give us a little taste of what's been going on in this report.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of thing that, you know, it's a perennial story, really, that campuses act, if you like, as a predator's playground, because, you know, you've got a lot of drunk students, you've got a lot of drunk young women, and you've got a lot of men who will take advantage of that. So we know that around 33% of students, female students, say they have been sexually harassed. So that can be 10% have faced exposure, so indecent exposure by men, and they've also had crude remarks about the body, that sort of thing. And whilst that sounds perhaps not that serious, actually that can really impact on whether you want to go out every day, whether you want to, be seen in public, how you interact. It can impact on your studies as well. So this is actually, this is something that is very serious. And I think it's very easy to minimise sexual violence because we don't like to think of the men who might be our brothers, our friends, our colleagues being abusers. But actually, the statistics show that around about 31% of male students, this isn't from this survey, this is from another survey, say that they would force sex on a woman if there were no consequences, if they wouldn't be caught. And I think onto this already baseline of sexual violence, we now have pornography, which is obviously hugely exacerbating this problem.
So, Jo, obviously this is a one-snapshot survey with very concerning results, but do we know if this is a problem that has got worse? Do we have any data from 10, 20, 30 years ago?
I think one of the really key things to look at here is attitude change. So, we've had all of these absolutely pointless lessons on consent, on Andrew Tate, and all these sorts of things going into schools. Whereas, actually, if you look at the attitudes of young people and how they compare to older people towards sexual violence, young people are far more likely to accept it. So, for example, we know that rape in marriage has been a criminal offence since 1991, yet only 42% of Generation Z recognise that as a crime. Now, that compares to 87% of boomers. So what we are seeing is a huge shift in attitudes. And if you look at the common denominator, the thing that might have affected that, what's happened in the interim is a boom of pornography. And we know that it changes the way that people have sex. So we know that, for example, nearly 40% of women of Generation Z have experienced sexual strangulation. Something that used to be very niche and very rare, and now it's normal because of pornography. And we also know that we're seeing increasing reports of injuries from doctors who said that girls and women have been subjected to brutal forms of sex. And we also have, prosecution rates are plummeting, and we still have ever rising rates of rape.
OK.
Joe Bartosh, some very shocking statistics there. Thank you so much for coming on, and we must cover this story in more detail another time.
We should, and we should also talk about the number of students coming internationally into the country, and how our change in demographics has changed and will contribute to this story too. But anyway, breaking news, Miriam.
Yes, the terrorism case against the kneecap rapper has been thrown out by the Chief Magistrate sitting at Woolwich Crown Court following a technical error in the way the charge against him was brought.
God, this is Britain's Newsroom. Stay tuned for more on that.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's nearly 10 to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Miriam and Alex.
Well, back to our top story this morning, and of course, the government is set to announce the launch of free, it's never free, is it, digital ID cards for all adults in a few moments' time.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer is going to say that the Brit card will help to curb illegal immigration by preventing migrants from slipping into the shadow economy.
Well, joining us now is our Yorkshire and Humberside reporter, Anna Riley. Anna, I believe you've been out and about. What do people make of this new policy?
Good morning to you both. Well, yes, there's been mixed opinions. Speaking to people, I believe it was quite generational. Youngest people that I spoke to, they said, yes, we already have our cards on our phone, our smartphones to pay rather than actually taking the physical cards out. They use Apple Pay and other such things. Whereas older people told me they don't have a smartphone necessarily, or that they feel that the paper copies of their passports or driving licenses is enough, really. Let's have a little listen to what they said.
Don't see why we have to accept ID cards in this country. I'm an honest citizen and I obey the laws, and I'm not interested.
It's a good idea for people, you know, especially it's the elderly that you got to think about, because they won't understand what they're going on about, will they? So they might not be able to have an ID card.
It won't stop the black economy, which is everywhere. You know, everybody with their eyes open sees it, is aware of it. This won't do anything to it.
Not everybody can afford to buy a passport for ID.
Makes it easier to do stuff online as well than doing it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I probably lose my driving licence about 5 times a week, so definitely helpful.
So those are the views of people here in Hull on that brick card there. It's been said by the government that the plans would require anyone starting a new job or renting a home to show the card on a smartphone app, which would then be checked against a central database for those entitled to live and work there. And that's hoped that it would detract people from coming and working illegally here, including for delivery companies. The government have said that the ID will eventually make it simpler to apply for services like driving licences, childcare and welfare. But the last time that the UK had mandatory ID cards was during wartime, with the last tranche scrapped in 1952. So the idea also has been opposed by civil liberty groups as well, and there's a petition going at the moment that's already been signed by 500,000 people opposing this plan. So certainly a conversation for everyone to have, really, as to whether they oppose these digital ID cards or whether they support them.
Anna Riley reporting from Hull, thank you very much. Alex, very interesting, the divide between Gen Z, younger people who are quite relaxed about this because they use digital so much, and older people who are much more sceptical.
Do you know what? In America, they have digital driver's licenses. Why don't you if you want to do that, why don't you do it? Why do you have to force people? Make it an option if young people want to have digital driver's licenses. This is different, isn't it? Because this is doing is not just saying you can have a digital passport or digital driver's license. It's saying we'll just put it all into one little thing, and that's the difference. I don't mind if they want to digitise my passport, and that just means that all I'm doing is swapping my physical passport for something that's on my phone, as opposed to we'll put everything in one place.
It's about who owns the record, isn't it? Because I have my passport, and if I'm asked to produce it, I can. But I own it, I keep it, I know where it is. I mean, I don't technically own it, the government technically owns a passport, but it's in my possession. The trouble with a digital ID is it's not in your possession. That information is centralised, it's held centrally, and the government can access it at any time.
Honestly.
And it could be tagged to your weekly shop, where you've travelled on the bus, all those kind of things. That does happen in China, we know that.
Yep.
It's not, it's not some fantasy this is happening now. So I think people are being too blasé about it.
Social credit system incoming. Listen, we'll be crossing live to the Prime Minister very shortly as he's expected to make this massive announcement. Stay with us.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a largely sunny day for many of us yesterday, today is going to be a fair bit cloudier for many because the high pressure that's dominated our weather through much of this week has shifted away a little bit further towards the east, allowing for a bit more of an easterly flow across England in particular, and so we're dragging in some cloud from the east. As a result, through this afternoon, central and eastern parts of England are going to be pretty cloudy, and some of that cloud filtering into parts of Wales, southwest England, even across eastern parts of Scotland. And there may be 1 or 2 showers around as well. Where the cloud's thick, particularly in the southeast, a bit of a fresh feel to things, but further north and west with some sunshine, feeling a fair bit warmer. Then, as we go through this evening, actually, there's a chance of some cloud breaking up across parts of East Anglia and Kent, for example, so some late sunshine here perhaps, but also a few showers to watch out for. Staying cloudier there across much of central England, large chunks of Wales and southern England as well. Meanwhile, across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and some areas of northern England, there will be a few breaks in the clouds, some late sunshine for quite a few places here. Staying mostly dry as we go overnight, not totally dry, that's because there is a band of rain coming in from the west. That's going to feed in across parts of Northern Ireland, later into Western Scotland as well. Elsewhere, yes, a largely dry picture, and some of the cloud will be breaking up, but there will be a little bit more cloud around than some recent nights. As a result, temperatures dropping a little bit where we get the clear skies, but perhaps not as low as recent nights for many, though across parts of the southeast of England, actually it could be again quite chilly and perhaps a bit more mist and fog than we've seen through some recent mornings here. As we go through tomorrow then, this band of rain across western parts is going to be quite heavy, could cause some impacts across parts of Northern Ireland, western, southwestern Scotland, 50, maybe 70 millimetres of rain building up in just 5 to 6 hours perhaps in some places, but across central and eastern parts are driest.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Good morning, it's 11 o'clock on Friday the 26th of September. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Alex Armstrong and Miriam Cates.
Backlash grows as the government announces that every adult in the country is set to get mandatory digital ID cards.
Yes, that's the breaking news this morning, as in a desperate bid to stop the boats, Sir Keir Starmer hopes these IDs will prevent people from working illegally. Is this unacceptable state control? Will it even work?
Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Helen Wheatley is not convinced.
Don't want to have a society where people can be stopped in the street and asked to show their ID. Completely opposed to that.
Well, the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage also slammed the move.
I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do.
Well, someone's got to defend this policy, and Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy has been out defending it this morning.
We think there's a really positive element of this to a lot of people across the United Kingdom, but it also will help us to deal with something that's of significant concern to a lot of people, including many of your viewers, and that's illegal migration.
Now, the Prime Minister is also going to admit that the Labour Party got it wrong on migration, as he prepares to make the case for national renewal based on British values and difference under the same flag. We'll be hearing from Sir Keir Starmer from the world stage in just a few moments' time.
And outrage as the terrorism case against kneecap rapper Liam, I can't pronounce his last name, has been thrown out following a technical error in the way the charge against him was brought.
Well, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is now ready to make that address, so we are going to cross live to the Global Progress Action.
For that introduction. Thank you to all of you here for joining us today. And can I take this early opportunity to thank all of those that work behind the scenes to bring this event together and allow us this opportunity to discuss. So thank you very much to them. Now, this is a gathering of people bound by a common cause, the patriotic renewal of our nations, that is underpinned by the values of dignity and respect, equality and fairness, and the belief that social democratic means are the best way to pursue that goal. But it's also a room that puts paid to a story we often hear in the press these days, that somehow our politics is dying out. Now, yes, we are in an era of huge challenge, but we can take heart when we look around the world. In fact, we only need to look around this room. Kristrún from Iceland, Pedro from Spain, Mark Carney, who stormed to victory in Canada at the beginning of this year, followed by Albo in Australia, and of course Jonas in Norway just a few weeks ago. So in fact, pitted against our right-wing opponents, I'd say centre-left parties are having quite a year so far. And not forgetting, there is... Good morning, Pedro. We're just hailing you being here. But not forgetting, of course, the Labour Party's victory in July of last year, getting a landslide victory here in the United Kingdom. So I'm sorry, I don't accept that argument that somehow our politics is dying out. But I do accept that it is now time for Social Democrats to confront directly some of the challenges and some of the lies, frankly, that have taken root in our societies. Because we don't just hear these stories about our politics, we also hear stories about our great countries, our communities, our cities, that simply do not match the reality that we see around us. And it's very good to have you here in London. I hope you've enjoyed yourself here in our capital city. Maybe gone out for breakfast this morning, popped into the pub for a pint last night, maybe enjoyed the last rays of sunshine in our beautiful parks. And if you have done any of those things or other brilliant things in London, you may have noticed that this city isn't the wasteland of anarchy that some would have you believe. But that, in a sense, captures what we're up against, doesn't it? And there are versions in all of your countries where places, institutions, communities are portrayed in a way that is a million miles from reality. A sort of industrialized infrastructure of grievance, an entire world, not just a world view, created through our devices that is miserable, joyless, and demonstrably untrue. And yet, in another way, and this is the challenge, also totally cohesive. because it preys on real problems in the real world, identifies clear enemies. That's us, by the way. And at its heart, its most poisonous belief, and this was on full display here in London just under 2 weeks ago, that there's a coming struggle, a defining struggle, a violent struggle for the nation, for all of our nations. And you don't have to be a great historian to know where that kind of poison ends up. And you can just feel it in a language that is naked in its attempt to intimidate. Because it's not careless or accidental, it's part of a strategy. They want politics to be a choice between globalists and nationalists, to draw a dividing line between the elites and the people, in which somehow our rich story of patriotism and pride, our common cause with working people, our deep roots in the trade union movement in our communities, the desire and demand of working people for a voice in their future is claimed by those who have nothing in common with them or their values. Only a cynical intent to exploit their fears to benefit themselves. That is what we're up against. So we must show our politics, resolutely opposed to a status quo that doesn't deliver for working people. The worst thing we can do is to defend the status quo. It hasn't worked for working people. We must be determined to deliver change in their interests. Patriotic renewal, rooted in our own national stories, restoring pride where people live and work. We fight for our values, decency, tolerance, respect, and most importantly, we focus on the countries we can become through renewal. National renewal. Now, that's not a new argument for social democrats, but it is the beating heart of our politics, the nation state, harnessing the potential of the whole country, providing security and opportunity for working people, together squaring up to the challenges of a world that is frankly more dangerous, less secure, than many of us have known in our lifetimes. We have to respond to that, not by turning inward, but with even deeper solidarity, alliances and partnerships built upon common values, the rules-based order that has kept the peace in our world since the last century. The coalition of the willing, strong, not just because of the depth of our shared beliefs, but because we recognize that the security and safety of the people that we serve depends on our relationships, our willingness to stand up together across our different political traditions and not be cowed by tyranny. But to protect strength abroad, you do need security at home, economic stability, an approach to economic growth that can create wealth more fairly in the first place. Proud working-class towns and cities, so often disenchanted with mainstream politics because the economy does not work for them, and because that's been true for a very long time. And they're losing trust in our ability to deliver the change that they want to see. They don't want handouts or help. They want to stand on their own feet. I'll give you an example from the United Kingdom. Yesterday, we announced £5 billion to be spent by local people, however they see fit, in their communities, restoring a pub, reviving a community hall, reopening a youth club. But the important thing is not coming cap in hand to Whitehall to get the green light on a project, but actually allowing control to be with the communities where the funding is going, so they can choose what it's spent on, because those with skin in the game know what's best for their communities. It's about restoring control and agency, having the respect for working people to choose what's right for them. And that is how they stand proudly as partners in a social democratic nation. So our approach to the economy, investment, yes, of course, in everything from defence to energy, creating good, well-paid jobs. Industrial policy, yes, of course, our proud heritage of making things, relighting the fires and the factories across the country. In public services, absolutely, for all of us, from healthcare to transport, and financial prudence, which is non-negotiable. But it does also mean stripping out regulation so we can build more and build more quickly. And the private sector can create wealth in every community. Now, some people call this approach abundance. I have a different phrase for it, social democracy. But the way I see it, this is the defining political choice of our times. A politics of predatory grievance, preying on the problems of working people and using that infrastructure of division against the politics of patriotic renewal, rooted in communities, building a better country, brick by brick from the bottom up, including everyone in the national story. Difference under the same flag. Because wherever you are in the world, we all have our different national symbols. And what I'll say is this: we must fight for them. Stand up to those who tell us that there's a tension between our symbols of pride and symbols of inclusion, our multi-ethnic modern nation and our history and heritage. There is not. They are one and the same thing. That's the social democratic argument. It is a powerful one, and we must never surrender it. But of course, you need more than symbols for nation building. You also need renewal. And it's important to be really clear on this. Renewal is not just fixing problems in some managerial sense. That is important, of course it is. People are very disappointed with the pace of change in government. It's so much slower than almost every other facet of their lives. So we do have to speed up. Poor delivery is a threat to mainstream politics. But renewal is a deeper argument. It means demonstrating to working people that, as well as the economy, the state is being run in their interests. And that does mean we've got to look ourselves in the mirror and recognise where we've allowed our parties to shy away from people's concerns and let the politics of purity patronise people. Now, you will all have issues in your own countries, but in Britain, it's illegal migration. And I suspect that may be the same in a number of other countries. For too many years, it's been too easy for people to come here, slip into the shadow economy, and remain here illegally. Because, frankly, we've been squeamish about saying things that are clearly true. It's not just that it's not compassionate left-wing politics to rely on labour that exploits foreign workers and undercuts fair wages, but the simple fact that every nation needs to have control over its borders. We do need to know who is in our country. Our immigration system does need to be fair if we want to maintain that binding contract that our politics is built on. Otherwise, it undermines trust, undermines people's faith that we're on their side, and their belief that the state can and will work for them. And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them. And of course, the truth is, we won't solve our problems if we don't also take on the root causes, looking upstream to tackle poverty, conflict, climate change, issues that aren't just intolerable for those of us who care about inequality and injustice wherever it's found in the world, but which have clear consequences for our own citizens. Take Russia's aggression in Ukraine. We all have a responsibility for the future of our continent, to stand tall where oppression and violence rears its head. But it is also about energy security, because Putin and other tyrants have used their control over energy supplies as a threat. They've pushed up energy bills, threatened to keep doing so unless they get their way. And that's why we're investing in our own energy, sovereign control over our own future, whether that's nuclear, wind, solar power. Now, this will create good jobs, but it will also take the boot of tyrants like Putin off our throat. So our mission to become a clean energy superpower is about future-proofing energy supply, bringing energy bills down and protecting the planet that we all live on, doing right by our values and by our countries and our citizens. Because in this era, we must be the nation builders. We must be the patriots in our countries. We must show working people that we, and only we, can deliver the pride and belonging they seek. Their communities strong, cohesive, changed for the better, taking control of our future, tackling the big challenges, whether that's climate change or illegal migration, not shying away from them. That is how we win. That is how we rebuild. That's how renewal defeats grievance. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, there we have it. Hey, there we have it. Well, a fascinating speech there by the Prime Minister.
Considerably shorter than Donald Trump's 57 minutes to the UN.
And I think that's welcome news to our viewers. Interesting stuff, though, isn't it? I mean, whatever happens, he is the Prime Minister of the country, and we must pay attention to what he says because, of course, he's setting out his agenda with all his other globalist left-wing friends there as well, who, of course, this is their CPAC, this is their right-wing conference. The Prime Minister, obviously, setting out his agenda, saying how he wants to defend the status quo.
And it's an interesting insight into how the left, or Social Democrats, as he called himself and the other leaders there, it's an interesting insight into how they view what's going on. And I thought it was quite telling that he talked about those protests that happened in London a couple of weeks ago where there were 100,000 people, we know, probably over 100,000 people, just 25 arrests, people there to display their support for our country, for our national identity. And yet he said about that protest that they're preying on real problems in the real world, identifying enemies, that it's at its heart a poisonous belief on full display here in London just under 2 weeks ago, and there's a coming violent struggle for the nation. It's a complete misreading, surely, of what was going on.
100%. I mean, having been there myself, it was obviously ridiculous to say that there's a violent struggle, but then also to criticise Elon Musk for saying, you know, defend yourself, violence is coming. He's saying it was a violent struggle, and this is bonkers stuff, isn't it? OK, well...
well, we're going to be talking a bit more about that in a moment, but we do have some breaking news to share with you now, because we can tell you that the former senior Liberal Democrat, Lord Campbell, has died at the age of 84. And, of course, Alex, he was quite a pivotal figure in Liberal Democrats.
He was.
During their time in coalition, and then became the leader of the Liberal Democrat Party. Yeah,
and of course, you know, a very well-respected man who's been in politics for an exceptionally long time. Catherine Forster's here to join us to talk about this very sad passing of Lord Campbell.
Yes, so sad news this morning. He was 84 years old. He was the MP for North East Fife right from 1987 right through till 2015 when he became a member of the House of Lords, and he was leader of the Liberal Democrats just for a year in 2006 to 7 with Vince Cable as his deputy. Of course, Vince Cable then went on to be leader. But look, you know, I was at the Lib Dem conference just the other day, and there's been a very different style with the Lib Dems now. You couldn't see somebody like that, could you, with all of the stunts? I mean, OK, Sir Ed Davey, he has led them to 72 seats, which is obviously really great for them, and they are continuing with these stunts, despite the fact that I think there are some questions whether they ought to be act a little bit more seriously. But yes, sad news today. Sir Ming Campbell passed away at the age of 84.
And athletes as well.
Yeah, competed in the 1964 Olympic Games in Tokyo as a sprinter. Well, I didn't know that before.
No, there you go.
Interesting character.
Yes, sad news, unfortunately. It's very, very sad news to hear that. Should we talk more about Keir Starmer's speech there? I think it's exceptionally interesting timing, of course. He did take a swipe at Andy Burnham in his sort of exiting remarks, saying financial prudence is, quote, non-negotiable. And that's a pretty thinly guised attack on Andy Burnham, isn't it? And I think the fact that he might be, you know, alluding to this sort of stuff says to me that the fraction in the Labour Party, the factions, should I say, and the fractures are becoming ever more apparent, Miriam.
Absolutely, and I think it's also a signal, perhaps, of what's to come in the budget. And Catherine, of course, we still have many, many weeks to go until the budget and lots of speculation. But very clear, I think, that Starmer and Rachel Reeves are not going to depart from the idea of trying to balance the budget, which inevitably is going to mean tax rises, because we know that the backbenchers won't vote for cuts.
No, exactly. And of course, they're going to have to raise £5 billion more because those welfare cuts that they tried to get through, their own MPs simply wouldn't tolerate them. So it's looking like a black hole of about £30 billion. That is huge. And remember this time last year when Rachel Reeves made £40 billion of tax rises, she said she wouldn't have to do anything like that again, that was a one-off. Well, here we are a year later, and it looks like they absolutely will have to do those sorts of things. Meanwhile, he's off to Liverpool this weekend, up to the north of England. Andy Burnham, King of the North, some would say, Mayor of Greater Manchester, originally hails from Liverpool, has done a couple of big interviews, including the one in which he said, you know, we shouldn't be in hock to the bond markets. That will be worrying a lot of people, and I think the Prime Minister and others are now using that as a stick with which to beat Andy Burnham, saying, look at this, he'd take you down the Liz Truss route. We absolutely can't afford that. But, I mean, there's no route for Andy Burnham to get a seat at the moment, but I think if he could, he certainly would pose big problems because he talks like a normal person.
Yes.
And I think 16 million people in the north of England, many of whom would think that he does speak for them.
Yeah, it was interestingly because Starmer did say in that speech they're losing the trust of the working class and their ability to deliver change. Of course, also what's been going around in Labour WhatsApp groups is a face AI mix of Liz Truss and Andy Burnham. So there we go. Yeah, interesting stuff, Catherine. Because what is this fracturing happening in Labour? It seems to be growing by the moment. Of course, leading up to Labour Party conference, do we expect it to play out at Labour Party conference at all, or will it all calm down by then?
Well, look, Andy Burnham is just doing a couple of fringe events, but the fact that he's on the cover of the New Statesman, the fact that he was the front page of the Telegraph, shows you that there are manoeuvrings. I don't think things are going to calm down because, look, the government had a disastrous first year. They had a summer dominated by Nigel Farage and the small boat crisis. They came back, 3.5 weeks ago, saying this is the next phase. Promptly had to lose Angela Rayner, had to have a massive reshuffle, then had to sack the US ambassador. Now there's ongoing questions about Morgan McSweeney and donations. There's already been fines, but there's more news emerging from that. You know, they can't seem to get a grip on the headlines. And also, of course, we hear the North gets all these promises. It's 2 years since Rishi Sunak went and stood in a former railway station in Manchester and took away the HS2 leg to Manchester. And now we hear that the Labour government, having promised to deliver, you know, Northern Powerhouse Rail and to lay out how and when they're going to do it, we're not getting any plans. So it seems like that's been put on the back burner too. So you know, going to the North again, and the North is going to feel aggrieved yet again.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we're going to go back to that breaking news that Lord Ming Campbell has sadly passed away. I guess he was, when we think about his career and the time that he was in politics, very different to how we see it today, isn't it? Very, very different type of politics that he was around in. Of course, the bigger around the Blair era was very, I believe, was a big opponent of the war in Iraq and those sorts of things. Obviously came through in that sort of time of politics, Catherine. Many Liberal Democrats will be sad for this loss today, indeed, won't they?
Yes, indeed, and I think it really does feel like a different era. The noughties, new Labour, there was money around, there was an optimism, there was a feeling that things were going well in terms of foreign policy. It felt like, you know, the global instability that we're seeing now, OK, there was the disaster of the Iraq war, but it felt like the world was safer. And I think the other big difference is social media, you know, this 24-hour news cycle, social media, the way that sort of puts people into sort of funnels on one side or the other, and it was a much more sort of temperate, gentle, I think, climate then.
Indeed.
Well, for our younger viewers who may not be familiar with his career, Ming Campbell did stand for the Liberal Democrats first in 1976, but he didn't win that constituency for 11 years, and his first career, as we said earlier, was as a sprinter, and he actually held the UK 100-metre record from 1967 to 1974 and ran in the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, being dubbed the Flying Scotsman.
There we go. Well, someone to talk about this, someone we know who will have a great deal of information on this man. Of course, Lord Ming Campbell, we were talking about with Tom Harwood here. Tom, thanks for joining us to talk about this incredible man's life. What do you think he will be remembered most for?
I think most people will remember Ming Campbell for the transitional role he played in the Liberal Democrats at a time when this party was growing up in the eyes of the British public. I mean, after the 2005 election, the Lib Dems had the highest number of seats that they'd had since they were the Liberal Party. Of course, they now have a higher level of seats even still. But if you remember, from 2005 until 2010, the Lib Dems were suddenly being taken incredibly seriously, to the point when they were included in three-way debates in 2010. Now, Ming Campbell played an absolutely crucial role in that transition for the Liberal Democratic Party. Of course, when Charlie Kennedy had to step down, personal problems there, Ming Campbell was this steady pair of hands for the party, this transitional leader that was then able to step back and allow Nick Clegg to step forward and become party leader in 2007.
I mean, I remember him at the time. I was a young lad interested in politics, so I remember him being leader, and he's sort of this, I would say, this older breed of politician that was very much more statesman-like.
Yes.
Politics was far more eloquent back then, not perhaps the trampolining and bungee jumping we see today.
I think, yes. I mean, ironically, he'd probably be quite good at trampolining and bungee jumping.
Yes.
Athletic hinterland.
Yes, that's a good point.
But yes, I think that one of the reasons why he was just such an obvious choice to take over from Charlie Kennedy was that he held such high esteem across the House of Commons, that he held he was held in such high regard by Liberal Democrats and frankly across the political spectrum too. This was a man who stepped up to the moment to take his party, to lead his party when they needed it, and then of course stepped back for that next stage. And you do get transitional leaders like this for many parties. I mean, a great example was how the Conservative Party in 2003 sort of had a transitional leadership that stayed on until after 2005, knew that it was time to step back, but also stayed on for enough time for a new sort of generation to step forward and take on the leadership.
Now, back in 1976, when he first stood, that would have been the Liberals, wouldn't it? Not the Liberal Democrats.
Exactly,
before the SDP split off from the Labour Party and the new Liberal Democrats formed. So what an extraordinary career his lifespan.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that there are very few people remaining who sort of the Liberal Democrats always like to claim the history of sort of Lloyd George and Asquith and David Campbell Bannerman and sort of the titans of liberalism at the start of the last century, before the party sort of was displaced as the franchise extended, as the Labour Party rose. And yet people like Ming Campbell were that bridge between the Liberals and what became first the Social and Liberal Democrats, and then was shortened to become just the Liberal Democrats. When they launched as the Social and Liberal Democrats, they released their famous bird logo, and it was mocked by Margaret Thatcher in, I think it was the 1989 Conservative Party conference, where she quoted Monty Python to say, "This parrot has ceased to be. This is an ex-parrot." Well, of course, perhaps it was the Liberal Democrats that had the last laugh, as this parrot has been rising higher and higher, now with 72 MPs boasting that parrot badge.
Well, if the poll's anything to go by, the parrot will certainly be eating out of the tree. Of course,
it's more of a phoenix.
When going back to, of course, Lord Sir Ming Campbell. He came under a lot of criticism for his age when he was leader. And I believe that was one of the defining factors that forced him to, at least, feeling that he should step down. 66 at the time, which, by today's standards, is young in some politics. Is that right? Well, I might be right that the President of the United States is approaching his 80s.
But isn't it funny? It's all about the context, isn't it? So, at a time in the United States, if it's Biden versus Trump, it all seems everything's very old. At the time, 2006, David Cameron was the fresh-faced leader of the Conservative Party. He'd been in for a year. Tony Blair had, of course, been elected at a very young age in 1997. He was an elder statesman by that time, but still a young man by sort of historical standards. So if you have the Liberal Democrats, particularly a party that was focused on winning over university constituencies at the time, the anti-war vote, all of this sort of stuff, the brand of the Liberal Democrats, perhaps it's a misnomer, because, of course, you can get people like Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn, older men who somehow galvanise the youth. But at the time, I think perhaps people were thinking that, given the contrast between Tony Blair and David Cameron, young, fresh faces, the Liberal Democrats needed to refreshen up a bit too.
Well, now we have a gentocracy, so there we go.
Well, Tom Harwood, thank you very much for your insights, and we'll be continuing to pay tribute to Lord Campbell with his close friend, former Lib Dem MP Mark Oaten, coming up next. But first of all, your 60-second news update with Sophia Hill.
Miriam, thank you. Very good morning. These are your top stories at 11:30. Obviously, revisiting that breaking news this morning that the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Lord Ming Campbell, has died at the age of 84. Walter Menzies Campbell, often known as Ming, had a parliamentary career spanning 5 decades, and he served as the leader of the Liberal Democrats between 2006 and 2007. In other news, the Prime Minister has unveiled plans for a free digital ID in a bid to crack down on illegal working and make it easier for people to access public services. Sir Keir Starmer says it's an enormous opportunity, but it faces growing backlash as Reform UK call it a cynical ploy to fool voters, and the Tories brand it a desperate gimmick to stop the votes. Nigel Farage is on course to be the next Prime Minister, according to a new YouGov poll. This also comes as Reform UK hits 250,000 members, making it the second largest political party in the United Kingdom. And a multi-billion-pound boost is coming to Britain's high streets, parks and public spaces. The government's announced up to £5 billion for its new Pride in Place programme, backing 339 neighbourhoods to lead local renewal. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app.
Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Hello, very good day to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a largely sunny day for many of us yesterday, today is going to be a fair bit cloudier for many because the high pressure that's dominated our weather through much of this week has shifted away a little bit further towards the east, allowing for a bit more of an easterly flow across England in particular, and so we're dragging in some cloud from the east. As a result, through this afternoon, central and eastern parts of England are going to be pretty cloudy, and some of that cloud filtering into parts of Wales, southwest England, even across eastern parts of Scotland, and there may be 1 or 2 showers around as well. Where the cloud's thick, particularly in the southeast, a bit of a fresh feel to things, but further north and west with some sunshine, feeling a fair bit warmer. Then, as we go through this evening, actually, there's a chance of some cloud breaking up across parts of East Anglia and Kent, for example, so some late sunshine here perhaps, but also a few showers to watch out for. Staying cloudier there across much of central England, large chunks of Wales and southern England as well. Meanwhile, across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and some areas of northern England, there will be a few breaks in the clouds, some late sunshine for quite a few places here. Staying mostly dry as we go overnight, not totally dry, that's because there is a band of rain coming in from the west. That's going to feed in across parts of Northern Ireland, later into western Scotland as well. Elsewhere, yes, a largely dry picture, and some of the cloud will be breaking up, but there will be a little bit more cloud around than some recent nights. As a result, temperatures dropping a little bit where we get the clear skies, but perhaps not as low as recent nights for many, though across parts of the east-southeast of England, actually it could be, again, quite chilly and perhaps a bit more mist and fog than we've seen through some recent mornings here. As we go through tomorrow then, this band of rain across western parts is going to be quite heavy, could cause some impacts across parts of Northern Ireland, western, southwestern Scotland, 50, maybe 70 millimetres of rain building up in just 5 to 6 hours perhaps in some places, but across central and eastern parts, a drier story.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with me, Alex Armstrong, and Miriam Cates.
Well, let's return to that breaking news. Lord Ming Campbell, former leader of the Liberal Democrats, has died at the age of 84.
We can now speak with former Liberal Democrat MP Mark Oaten. Mark, I'm sorry to hear of your loss. Quite a titan of the Liberal Democrats indeed. How will he be remembered as a member of the Liberal Democrats, and what impact has he made on your party?
Well, yeah, it's tremendously sad news. I was just reflecting during our advert break that we lost Paddy Ashdown, we lost Charles Kennedy, and now we've lost Ming Campbell. And these were giants, these were big beasts in politics, and there aren't that many of them around now. I worked really closely with him when he was foreign affairs spokesman and I was the party chairman. And, you know, Ming was absolutely straightforward. He was decent. He was wise. He was funny. He was the kind of person who I never saw lose his temper. He made his arguments calmly, quietly. He held respect amongst our parliamentary party, but I think also the House of Commons. You know, one of the characters that when they stood up to speak, everybody shut up. They listened to what Ming had to say. A remarkable politician and, yeah, very, very sad indeed.
And he had a very long career, especially by today's standards. What were the highlights of that career? What were his main achievements from your point of view?
I suspect he would probably point to his running and his Olympic success, because that was the other thing about Ming. It wasn't just about politics. You know, he had a great interest in culture, in the arts, in things outside of politics. But I think when you look back, there are two things that stand out. The first is that after Charles left, the party was in a period of chaos, and Ming steadied the ship. He came in as the leader and he got us back to being credible again. And that was a difficult task, and he did it really, really well. But the second thing was his way in which he was able to speak often for the whole of the House of Commons on international affairs, whether it was to do with the Iraq conflict or more recently, whether it was to do with our relations with Europe. You know, he spoke with great authority. I can remember having to step in for him on a couple of occasions when he was ill. And I really struggled with the breadth of the issues that he had to deal with around foreign affairs. And he just did it seamlessly. He just did it because he had this incredible brain and a really, really good insight as to what may be happening in the future as well. An all-round remarkable politician. And as I said at the start, we don't seem to get many of them these days.
Mm. And what do you make of the party's prospects going forward? Because under first past the post, which of course the Liberal Democrats have campaigned against, proportional representation would make much more sense from a Liberal Democrat point of view. But the party in many ways seems in a strong position, predicted to perhaps get even more seats at the next general election. Do you think this is the kind of influence that Ming Campbell would have wanted the party to have had?
Yeah, I mean, I reflect again. I imagine somewhere up there, maybe Paddy, Charles and Ming all having a very good glass of wine or whiskey together and looking down and thinking, you know what, we've left them in reasonably good shape, and Ed Davey has now taken on that baton. We've got the biggest number of MPs that we had, 72. That was something that Ming and the others couldn't achieve as party leader. And to their frustration also, they couldn't get the party into government. But that has since happened. We've been in government and now we have 72 MPs. So I think they can look down and think, yeah, the party's in good shape. And when the next election comes, I sense that this party can really be the outstanding force for liberalism in this country, and that's something which Ming would have wanted.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry for your loss there. MP Mark Oaten, Liberal Democrat there. All right, let's cross back to the Global Action Summit as Keir Starmer has announced digital IDs for all of us.
Given your neighbour to the south, and let me just apologise. And so how are you... just building on the Prime Minister's remarks about delivering and how delivery creates trust. How do you see that in the context of Canada?
Yeah, well, we all have special circumstances in our own way, I suppose. So, and I'm going to pick up what Prime Minister Albanese just said. It starts with delivering directly for the situation people are in, and and also draw a bit on what Keir was saying, which is. The reality of what you inherited, going 15 years without real wages, without people getting ahead. Like the last time that happened was the middle of the 19th century. Karl Marx was writing the Communist Manifesto in the British Library. I mean, there's a connection here. So you've got to deliver real wage growth first and foremost. And so similar to in Australia, slightly different measures. First thing we did is we cut taxes for the middle class. We cut taxes for 22 million Canadians, boom, right away. First thing we did, we cut a tax effectively for young Canadians when they're buying their first time home, cut taxes on carbon, which was also the direct carbon tax, which had become a divisive issue. It was in textbook a good policy, but a divisive issue. So very tangible things that directly affected affordability, cost of living. Those are fiscal choices, but they had to be made, and they're delivering, and Canadians are beginning to feel first that. Second, building in a way that is as inclusive as possible. I'm going to give another example.
So we're just watching the Global Progress Action Summit there. Our Prime Minister talking with many other world statesmen, including Mark Carney, who of course is now the Prime Minister of Canada, but used to be the Chairman of the Bank of England.
Yeah, there we go. Well, anyway, in the meantime, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're wondering where's good for the weather or heading south during the next few days, be aware there's a next hurricane approaching Portugal whilst it's staying breezy through Greece, particularly the Greek islands. Nothing too unusual about that. But for Italy, increasingly unsettled, some heavy rain and thunderstorms, particularly towards the south, and for Sicily. Across Iberia, settled on Saturday, but here's that ex-hurricane likely to bring some strong winds and heavy rain into Portugal in particular later in the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Blair.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
All right, back to our top story this morning, and the government has announced the launch of free, it's never free, digital ID cards for all adults in a few moments' time.
Well, he said that the BRIC card will help to curb illegal immigration by preventing migrants from slipping into the shadow economy.
Oh, joining us now is GB News reporter Will Godley. Will, tell us about what you are up to when it comes to digital ID. Have you been stopped yourself and asked yet?
No one's stopped me to look at my ID or my press credentials, but I'm here in Notting Hill, of course, an area of London famous for its rom-com. I've been speaking to people throughout the morning, and it's fair to say when it comes to digital ID, it doesn't look like there's going to be a happy ever after. There's no love lost here when it comes to digital IDs. People who I've been speaking to very unhappy with the Prime Minister's plans announced today. They told me that they don't think it's going to be able to stop the illegal migration that the Prime Minister hopes these digital ID cards will be able to, and other people telling me that they're worried about their data protection, that when their data goes online, they are worried that it could be at risk to hackers and other malware cyber attacks. Take a look at what some of the people I spoke to earlier on had to say.
I think, to be honest, if people are going to come across and take that effort to go on those dinghies, they're going to come across anyway, to be honest.
Digital ID, I feel like it's just tracking, and it's something that a lot of people aren't going to be happy about. I don't know. I don't think it's the right thing. I don't think it's going to help too much. I think it's going to cause more problems, if anything.
It's all about control. It's going to make no difference on immigration, none whatsoever. I mean, we've already got ID, we've got passports, driving license, national insurance number, all the rest of it. What can this add? If you're coming over in a boat, you don't have any ID. So what's going to happen? The government will give them one of these ID things and make them indigenous. It's not going to make any difference to indigenous people whatsoever. It's just more controlling.
The digital ID card will not identify the British, it will split the British. And that's why Starmer is declaring a civil war against his own country.
Well, overwhelmingly negative response there to the Prime Minister's plans for digital ID, and perhaps that's not surprising. A petition set up in the last few hours against these digital IDs has already had more than 800,000 people sign that petition. So across the country, people expressing their views against it. I did have some people come up to me and share positive things and positive things to say about these digital IDs. Some people, one lady I spoke to thought it would stop the small boats from crossing the channel, and funnily enough, of course, an area here that's very touristy. A lot of tourists I spoke to, people from Argentina, France and Australia, said they're used to these kind of digital IDs in their country and thought that it would be a good idea to be introduced to Britain in terms of the positive impacts they were talking about they've had in their countries. But fair to say, most people who I've been speaking to here would prefer for these to carry on being used for the time being.
Well, Will Godley, thank you very much for being out and about with us. Guys, you've got your passport with you. You never know when you might need that.
820,000 signatures. When we started the show this morning, what was it? Something like 600,000, maybe less. I mean, this is bonkers. It could be a poll tax moment for Sir Keir Starmer. Well, you never know.
Coming up now, we've got Tom and Dawn with Good Afternoon Britain. Don't switch off.
And we will be digging into the detail on digital ID. When will it be introduced? What will it involve? And how are they going to make it mandatory? All of that and much more.
Including where we are going to be banned from drinking alcohol, even grown-ups, in the very near future. You won't believe about that one.
Well, it's all coming from thick and fast, from 12 until 3 on Good Afternoon Britain. That's after your very latest weather forecast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, I'm here with your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, as we go through this weekend, there will be some fine sunny weather around for most of us, but worth bearing in mind there's also going to be a band of rain pushing its way in. We can already see that out to the west of us, a front that's going to arrive as we go through overnight and into tomorrow. Before that, though, plenty of dry weather still to come as we go through the end of today. A lot of the cloud that's developed will actually break up through the night across parts of England, Wales and into Scotland, and so some clear spells developing, especially across parts of East Anglia, where it's going to be quite chilly and some, well, locally thick fog could develop in a few spots, but elsewhere temperatures perhaps not falling quite as low as they have done through some recent nights. And then across Northern Ireland, turning increasingly cloudy and wet through the night, and some of that rain spilling into western parts of Scotland as well by dawn. Otherwise, first thing tomorrow morning, a dry start across central and eastern parts of Scotland with a bit of sunshine here and there, but turning increasingly wet from the west. A wet start across Northern Ireland, some spray on the roads, could be a bit of localised flooding as we go through the day because of some heavy persistent rain. A bit damp at times maybe across parts of Wales and southwest England through the morning, but a drier, sunnier picture the further east you are. Through the day we are going to see that band of rain continue to edge a little bit further eastward, so eventually clearing away from Northern Ireland with some heavier rain pushing into parts of southwest Scotland in particular, and some of that rain fringing into parts of western Wales and southwest England as well. Drier towards the east always, and some decent sunshine
sunshine in which it will feel relatively warm as temperatures peak in the high teens Celsius. More wet weather across many western areas as we go through tomorrow evening. It's always going to stay that bit drier across central and eastern parts with not a huge amount of rain arriving here. Some rain though may linger across parts of the southeast into Sunday. Otherwise it's looking drier for many as we go through Sunday and into next week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network